Hey guys, it's Goosebumps Completionist here, bringing you another book review. Getting kind of holidays. I know it's kind of out of whack. It's Halloween time. This might be kind of out an outlier to the Halloween themed books, but I got this in the mail. I paid a little bit for it, so I wanted to see what the fuss was about, why it's so expensive, and I have pretty mixed feelings about it, and that is Give Yourself Tales to Give You Goosebumps Special Edition 6, also known as More and More and More Tales to Give You Goosebumps. This book features 10 stories from the holidays, so it's all holiday-centric stories. And I did a little bit of research, and the only way to get this book was I think you had to get a box. Because normally on the first three books, I think they did a regular mass market, and then they did the special packs where these books were released in. This one definitely has a special pack look. There was no mass market release. The only way to get this book, I think you had to get the Christmas stocking pack, and it came with the book. So there's 10 stories in here, centered around the holidays, like I said. And I'm going to try to dive into each one and what I thought about very quickly. And I'll definitely highlight my favorites in here. So the first story in this book was called Don't Sit on the Gronk. It was very Gremlins vibes to it. Pays huge respect to that movie. And there's a death in that story, which, it happens. It happens quite a few times in this book. I think once or twice at least there's a death involved. So, yeah. So off the bat, I would say since death's involved, I would recommend maybe 8 years or older for this book, because it does get kind of graphic in some stories. Yeah, but the first story was okay. I thought that was really fun. The second story was The Nutcracker Nightmare, and I really did not like that story whatsoever. I thought it was kind of a Bill Murray Groundhog Day, whatever it's called, ripoff. I thought it was going to be about an evil nutcracker at a play that's possessed or something that will cause havoc to the audience or something. We didn't get that story. Instead, we got like an indefinite horror for this young girl, and I really did not enjoy the ending or the story whatsoever. It was decent at the very most. I just didn't think it was a standout story. The third story was The Ice Vampire, which I actually got a kick out of it. It's about a group of kids. They go to an ice sculpture contest, and they make a bunch of realistic-looking ice sculptures, and they come to life. And as you can imagine, a lot of weird things happen, kind of comical. The ending wasn't really scary. But that one was a pretty fun story, so I'll let that one slide. I thought that story was decent. The next one I can remember off the top of my head was called The Holly Jolly Holiday. And that story was very weird and creepy, and I really enjoyed that. It was about a family who comes across a very rare VHS tape. There's only like one in existence, and they have to play it to get their Christmas fix. And this kid notices a bunch of weird stuff happening to their family, and then they start losing grip on reality themselves, and they start acting crazy. And then the ending, after they figure out how to get rid of what's going on, another thing pops up, and it just kind of like cliffhangs you, but it's on a good note. So I really liked that story. I thought that story was really good. But then we get to my favorite story in the entire book, and that my favorite story by far was Why I Hate Jack Frost. Now this story was incredible. It takes place in Arizona. This kid lives in the desert. He never sees snow. It's around Christmas time. He goes to a Christmas store, and he finds this beautiful, like, I think glass or porcelain ornament, something like that, and it has an elf on it. Reminds him of where he used to live. I think he used to live somewhere colder, and he buys it. and he hangs it above his bed like a dream catcher. And then it starts getting to like a paradoxical dream nightmare sequence type of story, and it gets kind of dark. And what happens to this kid at the end is because of obviously Jack Frost. And the horrific part is him having to explain to people like he's not crazy that this actually happened to him is petrifying. I really enjoyed the story. That was definitely my favorite story in this book. Then the next story I thought was pretty decent as well. I think it's called the Marshmallow Surprise. I dug that story. I like the idea that these three kids, they're all siblings. They pretty much mess up their neighbor, the elderly woman. They mess up her property. And it's cold one day. They're out sledding. And they hit her mailbox. And she invites them in to drink some cocoa. And it gets kind of weird from there. But then the ending is like a complete 180. And it comes out of nowhere. And I actually really liked the ending on that. So I think that story was pretty good. It was all right. It wasn't like the best story by far in there, but it was really good. Another story, I think it was called The Monster on Ice. This kid buys some ice skates, and so he could perform better when he's playing hockey on the pond with his friends. And this book is a pretty much shot for shot like ripoff of Haunted Mask, kind of. And I really didn't like that about the book. I thought it was unoriginal. The ending was kind of silly. I didn't really care for that story. Then the story after, I thought had a very beyond belief factor fiction, Jonathan Frakes show vibe, and that was the Double Dip Horror. And these two twins, they go to a ski lodge to go skiing for, I think, a weekend or something. And they come across this boy who dares them to do the double dip challenge, which is like this really crazy mountain terrain. If you can ski that, you're pretty much like a kid legend. And it turns out that at the end of the book, it goes into a kind of like a Twilight Zone type of scenario where you find out that somebody's not who they seem to be, and somebody's in danger, and the cliff hangs you there, and you can only imagine what happens to that person. I thought that story was okay. And then we got Santa's Helpers, or Santa's Little Helpers. I thought that story was kind of cheesy. Another Twilight Zone type of story where something happens to some characters and nobody's going to believe them. They're pretty much stuck in a reality that they know is not real kind of situation. Yeah, it wasn't the worst. It wasn't like Nutcracker Nightmare bad, but it was pretty much close to that for me. I really did not enjoy that story. And then the last story in the book, I think it's called Attack of the Christmas Present. This kid gets like a robot, and he's trying to like hurt him and chase him around, and the ending of the book is just very, very kiddish. I think that's probably the least scary next to Nutcracker Nightmare in the book. I wouldn't say it's a bad story, but I really just didn't care for it. So yeah, those were the 10 stories in the book. And because of the overwhelming amount of abysmal stories in here, I had to give this a lower rating off the bat, guys. I couldn't bring myself to give this book a higher than a 4. And I even rated it less than a 4 because I thought it deserved less. But the good stories in here make this rereadable. I know this is kind of a pricey book. I do not think the prices on this book justify the quality of the stories. I think people want a lot of money for this because it's just a harder to find one. But there's like 30 copies for sale on Amazon, all for like 30 bucks a piece. Finding this book under $30 is hard. And I actually had to pay up, I think, like 20 to 22 for this. And I just wanted it because I knew I wasn't going to find it cheaper. It is like an acceptable, good condition. And there's writing, you can kind of see it. But if I had to rank this, I'd give it like a 3.2 out of 5. It's not quite abysmal. I would say 3 or less is abysmal. Anything above it, between like a 3 and a 4, is kind of like lower average. 4 is about an average, and anything 4.5 or higher is excellent. I would say this is like kind of, it's not bad, but it's not good. 3.2 out of 5. So yeah, that was my review on Tales to Give You Goosebumps Special Edition 6, also known as More and More and More Tales to Give You Goosebumps, the Holiday Book. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.